Here we are on the front of our Grand Design Reflection 315 RLTS. We're going to be doing a technician type walkthrough like you would have gotten on the date of delivery for your unit, walking through, telling you how these components work, giving you a few tips and tricks along the way on this particular floor plan. If you want more information on these components, or if your components in your unit slightly differ, you can find that on our Great American RV YouTube channel under the playlist HAPS Helpful Hacks. We get started in the front. We have our 7-way plug. It transfers from your towing vehicle, all your turn signals, your running lights, all that. You're also going to have a battery charge line on here that pulls off of your alternator to your battery to help keep that battery charged up while you're traveling down the road. You're also going to have your brake control wire that travels through this plug to be able to activate your brakes whenever you hit your brakes on your vehicle. Also, we're going to have our little clip right here that is going to go onto our receiver hitch, same place we hook our safety chains. We're going to hook this in right there too. This goes to our breakaway box. In the event our hitch, chains, all that stuff fails, and for whatever reason this disconnects from our truck, then we want this to go ahead and stop, right? So what this is going to do is go with the truck. It'll pull out of that breakaway box and it will activate the brakes on our trailer if and only if we have a good solid 12-volt battery on our unit. If we do not, the brakes will not activate on here. So we need to make sure we have a good 12-volt battery on there, and we also need to ensure that this pin is always locked all the way into that box as well to make sure that the brakes aren't active whenever we're traveling down the road. Also going to have our 12-volt powered jack on here. We're going to have our power line that runs down. You're going to have an inline fuse on that system. It'll work off of our battery power. So in the event it's not working, we check that fuse. We also check our 12-volt battery, make sure we have a good charge on it. If it's not working, we can't figure it out, you can remove that black plug on the top, put our crank handle in there, and manually operate that jack. In this box, we have our dual propane tanks along with our dual propane regulator. The way that operates is we have both of our tanks turned on. That dual propane regulator has a selector switch on it. We turn it to whatever tank we want to be our primary. It'll pull off that tank until it runs dry, at which point the indicator will read red and it will automatically swap over to that secondary tank. Now you go over there and you swap that valve over to that secondary tank. It will go ahead and read off whatever that level is, and you can get that prior primary tank refilled or replaced at that point. Behind that, we have our battery storage rack right there. You put several batteries for 12 volts on your unit. On our driver's side, we have access to our pass-through compartment with our control center. We also have our Furrion solar controller, which converts our solar power into charging power for that 12-volt system. Then we also have our Lippert tire link monitor right there that also has the sensors for our tires. We can monitor our tire pressure and everything while we're traveling down the road. We're also going to have our electric leveling system. If you notice, we have our levelers down on the ground, and this is an actual leveling system. They look similar to our stabilizer jacks that are only stabilizers, but these are actually levelers. You can get in the uneven ground, it will automatically level your unit. So we'll go over the operation of that right now, as well as touch on our control center and give you more information on that. So we can see here we have our LCI, electronic leveling system, for our travel trailer here. We'll run through the functions on here. First, we'll just run off of, if we just got to the campsite, we've pulled the unit off of our tongue jack. We want to go into auto level. You can just hit auto level right off the back, and those jacks will come down and level out your unit. From there, if we are ready to go ahead and head home, we can hit our arrow down and go to auto hitch height, and it wouldn't say unavailable here. It would just say available. You would hit enter, and then those jacks are going to raise up, and your tongue jack is going to go back in the same position it was in whenever you detached it from your truck, so no more guessing games there. So after we have our truck backed up to the hitch, we can come in here to auto retract rear, which is the third option on here. We want to hit enter, and it will retract those rear jacks. You can do that, or you can retract all of them. Either way, that's an option as well. And then just use the tongue jack to go ahead and set the ball on the ground. You always want to make sure all your jacks are retracted before you hit the road. Manual level is if we want to tweak it a little bit. We've gone through auto level, and our system, maybe our door is still kind of closing up on us, or something's just not quite right. This thing is only going to get it so much in level. So if we've got to make some minor adjustments, we would go into this manual mode right here. We would hit enter. We can see our degree marks right here. So as we adjust our levelness, either from the front, the rear, the right, or left, we'll see our degree marks change. And the objective, of course, is to get 0. More than likely, if we're in auto level, we have 0 already there, and we're just trying to make a little tweak. You would just tweak it with your front, left, right, rear, however you would like to do it. Also in manual mode, we can go ahead and do an auto retract, which would retract everything in there. If we scroll down one more time, we can see left front, and rear, right rear. So what you're seeing right here is the stroke of the jacks and how far out there they are, how extended they are. Now, if your pad that you're setting up at is extremely unlevel, you may have to get some blocks for it, because eventually this system will stroke out because it's only going to go out so far. Another option on here, if you are in that manual mode, I forgot to mention, is this retract. If you need to retract the jacks a little bit, hold down that button till it lights up, and then just hit your jack, front, right, rear, left, whatever, and it will actually retract those jacks. That's pretty much it in that system. We can hit enter to exit that. Whenever your system first turns on, this would be the screen that you have. You're going to have your voltage on there. Now, you do need a really good 12-volt system on here. If you don't have a good battery and you're not charging it whenever you run this system, it is likely you're going to have some faults in here. So keep that in mind. On our control center, we have our satellite cable and auxiliary ports for our coax connections. If we have outdoor satellite, we can hook that up. Park cable, we hook that up there, and if we have a third connection we'd like to run through all our TVs, we can hook that up right there. We have our quick connect right here for our blue coiled hose. We can hook up a spray port there. This coax port on the side here runs directly to our outside TV, that we can go ahead and hook whatever we want directly to that as well. We have a switch over here for our front cap lights and our slide lights. And we have another switch up in the top right corner, kind of hard to see. That is our water pump. That 12-volt water pump will pull from our onboard water storage, and it will supply water to our faucets on the inside in the event that we have actual water in that tank. We'll talk about how to fill that in a second. Our other option is our city water connection. Our city water connection is right here. This is where we would hook that water hose up. If we have a bib at the campground, we can hook that water hose up, turn it on. That will supply water to our fixtures. So if you didn't have that, you want to fill your fresh tank and use that water pump. Right here we have the combination of all the different options for how our water can go out into our unit. So we have our dry camping. So this would be if we have already filled our tank, we would go ahead and turn it to here. We turn that water pump on and it will pull from that tank. Next one is our power fill tank. We would have it in this option here to be able to fill that tank through that city water connection there. Now that onboard storage, once you add water to it, that does add more weight to our unit. If we don't want it, there is a valve underneath that we can go ahead and pull that and drain that water out. We don't want any more than what we need because of the added extra weight, and we don't want to leave it in there too long because that water will become stagnant over time. If we have a city water connection at the campsite, we can go ahead and hook that hose up right here, turn it to this configuration, and then we have our city water directly out to all of our stuff. Winterization option would pull from right here into our unit, and that end of that hose would need to go into a bottle of RV antifreeze. This is to be able to winterize your unit. There are more steps to this process. You can find that in your owner's manual or in our video on HAP's Helpful Hacks. Our last one is siphon sanitize to tank, which would be this configuration here. That is to sanitize that onboard water storage tank. You could do a mixture of bleach and water into that tank to go ahead and sanitize it and clean it out. Our next option over here is our black tank flush. That is to go ahead and flush out that sewage system out of our black tank. We would hook that up. We'll talk a little more about that when we get to our tank system. We do have a gray tank valve right here for that secondary gray tank outlet over here. Once again, we will go over the gray and black tanks when we get to those outlets. And we have a GFCI protected outlet right here on the side. In here, we're also gonna have our battery disconnect in this box right here. You'll find a lot of resettable fuses and stuff. Most of these are temperature controlled, so they'll automatically reset after they cool off if something's tripping. But it's an on-off switch. We go ahead and just turn it off. It disconnects our battery power from the rest of our unit. We use that whenever we store our unit unplugged. so we can conserve the amount of power in that battery, that when we come back out to hook up, we have battery power. So when we are plugged in, using it or storing it, we want to leave that switch on so our battery actually gets charged while it's plugged in. You'll notice another switch right here, off and on. That is our solar disconnect. Completely different from our battery disconnect. It will shut off all of our solar system, including this Furrion controller right here. So it eliminates it from the system. If you want to go ahead and run your solar while your unit is parked, either unplugged or plugged in, go ahead and do it. This disconnect right here will not prohibit the solar from charging. So you can turn this off, that solar will still connect to that battery system and still charge. You're gonna notice our front slide is a slim rack system right there, and as far as how that operates, 12-volt powered slide. We do have our LCI levelers right here. They do have an override system on them. We can pull that plug out, and we can see in there we do have a spot where we can put that crank handle and manually operate those in the event that our motor went out. If we do that, we do need to disconnect the 12 volts off of that motor before we go to operate it. The valve we talked about in regards to draining out our fresh tank, our onboard water storage, is right under there. That's that white valve next to the two blue overflow lines for that fresh tank system. And right behind me underneath, you're going to notice a red and blue line. Those are for your low point drains. Those are whenever you're going to winterize your unit. Once again, that more information on that can be found in your owner's manual. Behind our first slide out, we're going to see our Suburban furnace right there, gas operated, as well as our tankless Furrion water heater to give you endless hot water, also gas operated. Both will still need 12 volts in order to operate. Our 50 amp service cord right here, you put it in, twist lock it. To lock it in, you're also going to have that retainer ring on there. You want to tighten up so the kids running around here don't trip, pull that cord out of the wall. Once we have it plugged in right here, then we plug it into our shore power so we can reduce opportunity for any arcing to occur when we're plugging in right here. We also want to make sure our air conditioners are off whenever we plug in or unplug so we don't have any surges to our AC system. Down here we have our other gray tanks and our black tank right here. Now once again, we have that gray tank valve in the front, our black tank, and our two gray tanks right here. So we have 3 gray tanks on this system, 1 black tank, and there's our outlet right there. Now that's where we're gonna hook up that sewage hose to our port at the campground, or have to wait till we get to a dump station if we don't have one at the campground. We're gonna walk you through how to drain that system. Now first we need to know what's in it. Gray tank is sink and shower water, that's it. No deep deposits, no nasty stuff, anything like that. You can leave all your gray tank valves open all the time as long as you have that port at the campsite, and let all that water drain out so you don't have to go out and empty it after multiple showers. Our black tank, however, isn't going to fill up quite as fast. We need to leave that closed. That's where all our sewage from our toilet comes. And we need to make sure that we leave water in that system so that stuff doesn't solidify. If it does, you cause dry tank, cause problems, and then you're going to have to get it repaired, and it can be quite expensive. So leave that black tank valve closed until you're ready to empty and flush that system. When you are, you'll have your hose hooked up. You'll pull that black tank valve and let everything drain out of the system. Then we hook a water hose up to that black tank flush we talked about earlier, and we turn that water hose on, and there's a jet port on the other side of that tank that's going to help push all that stuff down to this valve right here. Whenever you're done, you shut off that black tank flush, you close your black tank valve, you go to the inside, and you hold down the pedal on your toilet, putting several gallons of fresh, clean water in there. This is going to help knock any debris, any other things that are in there down to a lower level while you're traveling down the road. We also want to put our chemicals in there. That way that will help degrade whatever deposits are still in there, but we always need to keep water in that black tank system. If you want another look at how we can flush out our black tanks, you can find some pro tips in our black tank flush under Hap's Helpful Hacks on our YouTube channel. We're going to notice our rear leveler right here. We can override that one by pulling that black plug out right there, disconnecting our 12 volts from it, putting a socket in there attached to a drill, and we can automatically retract that system with the drill in the event we need to override it. Our last slide on the driver's side is a rack and pinion slide. We do have a video on how to override that system. It does have a hole on the opposite side through the J-wrap right here. You can stick your crank handle in there and manually pull it in. That's basically the gist of it. If you want a shortcut straight to how to override, it's really easy in the event something happens. On the rear of our unit, we have our pre-wire for our Furrion backup camera system. Power is already ran there when you turn your running lights on your towing vehicle. it will power up that backup camera so you can see behind you while you're backing up or traveling down the road. We're also going to have that receiver hitch on the back. That receiver hitch is meant for an extra carriage or bike rack or anything like that, not meant to tow your golf cart, boat, trailer, or anything else behind you. Keep that in mind. We also have our factory supply ladder on the back. That's very important because we need to gain access to our roof to check the sealants up there every 60 to 90 days, as well as the sealant around all our trim, our lights, our windows, all that stuff. Owner's manual says we need to do it, we need to do it. If we don't do it, manufacturers are not going to participate in any water leaks on our unit. We're looking for any cracking, peeling, deterioration of that sealant. We need to clean it and reseal it. If we don't do that, we're going to end up with water damage in our camper, plain and simple. Make sure we're doing that after the first 90 days of purchase. Manufacturers don't participate in that. It's like changing the oil in your car. You have to maintain your unit so it will last and keep from any water damage. We also need to get up on our roof and check our rubber after trips to make sure that no trees or anything scraped or poked any holes up there, causing any openings for water damage. We also need to clean that rubber once or twice a year. On the driver's side of our unit, of course, more access to our pass-through bay as well as the other side of our leveler. We're going to have a motor on each side for that front leveling system. Once again, another plug that we can go ahead and put that rod in there and override that system in the event that it acts up and we can't get it to retract. We also have our 12-volt powered awning up here. We also have 12-volt awning lights that aren't on right now, of course, but they all are 12-volt powered. We're going to have a fuse panel on the inside. We can check in the event that stuff isn't working and see if a fuse is blown. It's going to be right next to our 110 breakers. We'll take a look at that when we get to the inside. Important thing about our awning is mainly a sunshade. We might get a little light drizzle on it. That's okay. We may get some AC condensation on there. We may get some dew on there. All that's fine, okay? Severe rainstorm, severe windstorm, anything like that, we need to go ahead and pull that awning in. You're leaving your camper for an extended period of time, roll it in just to be safe. You don't want that insurance claim and repair, all right? The other half of our awning is when we do have it out, we need to pitch it or lower it either in the front or the rear to make sure any of that light dew, light rain, or condensation from our AC can actually run off of our unit. In order to do that, we roll our awning out. We're going to have this pivot point right here. We just grab a hold of it, pull it down, and now our awning is leaning to the front. That water can drain off there. We can do it in the rear, we can do it in the front. Whatever one you want to do, just do one or the other. When we go to roll our awning in, we just need to take this, push it back up, and we can roll our awning in and we're good to go. Our rear awning is going to be the same way as our front awning. On the very rear, we're going to have that coax connection as well as a 110 outlet and satellite port for our outdoor TV system. We're going to see a hole right here. That hole is going to match up with that crank over there on our frame. That is to override the slide out on the opposite side. This slide out here on the passenger side is going to be the same thing, that rack and pinion. You're going to see a hole that lines up for that side for override as well. Down here, we're going to see in our lower J wrap, that will line up with this pin next to our rear jack. That is to drop down your spare tire. We'll also notice another leveling system jack right there on the rear. Remember that plug on the bottom where you can pull that out, put a 5/16 socket on a drill and retract that if necessary. We're going to notice on our entry door that it is going to have some resistance. We have friction controlled hinges on here, so that's to keep the wind from slamming that door shut, as well as your kids. We can go ahead and open that door up. We have our solid steps right here. Our solid steps are pretty easy to store. We just lift them up, put them in, make sure that latch is locked in, and they are stored. When we're pulling it down, we want to make sure that that door is open all the way. Same thing when we're storing it, so we don't scratch up that screen defender or anything. Pull that lever right there, drop them back down. Now, when we set up our unit and we have it all leveled out, we need to come over here and level our steps. Real easy to do. On each side, we have these silver tabs. We push those down and these legs will extend and retract. You would generally have it in this position right here, hold them level and extend or retract those legs however necessary. We want to do that so we have a nice flush threshold right here so this door can close and seal properly. We also want to do it to make sure that our frame on the bottom of our door isn't hitting the frame on our steps, causing any damage right there. As we walk in our door and our side cabinet, we're going to notice our control center. It's going to tell us the level of all of our tanks and as well as our battery. Now we also have this Bluetooth Connect button right here. If we want to download that Compass Connect Grand Design app, we can download that and monitor our tanks and do some of the options that are on here through that phone app. We'll notice here we have our ceiling lights as well as our awning light, our porch light, which is going to be on the other side, and our tank heaters. Our tank heater is a 12-volt mat heater that is connected to our tanks to go ahead and keep us from those tanks freezing up in cold weather. We also have our 12-volt water pump right here. That is going to be used to extract out of that fresh tank. We need to keep in mind that that is an on-demand pump. Whenever our water is running, we're going to hear that pump running. If you're sure that you don't have any faucets on or anything like that, you hear that pump running, you need to go turn it off. One of two things is happening. Either your fresh tank is empty or you have a leak somewhere in your system. It could lead to that pump getting damaged. Down here we have our awning controls as well as our slide-out controls. Everything on here, once again, 12-volt powered. We can find our 12-volt fuse panel down below. We would want to go ahead and check there first to see if any of those fuses correlate with this, as far as if anything is not working. Here, right next to our control center that's up here, we have our Furrion thermostat for our AC. This is going to control our cool and our heat. We're going to go over the operation of that now. We'll start with our cool option first. Our cool will cool the air throughout our unit. We, of course, set our thermostat to whatever point we want it to be, and we have our fan speed options. We have low and high. For low and high, that fan will run all the time. Now whenever we want that fan to cut off, whenever the compressor cuts off, much like we likely do at home, we have it on auto. That system will shut off and on with the compressor. Our next mode is our heat mode. Our heat mode activates our gas-powered furnace on our unit. We choose our set point and our heater will come on whenever necessary. There is fan speeds on here, but it does not change the fan speed on that furnace. It is a single fan speed on there controlled by the furnace board. Our next mode is our fan mode. Our fan mode simply circulates air throughout our unit without cooling it or anything. This will come out of our rooftop air, and we can just change from high to low to control that fan speed if we wish. That fan will stay on the entire time when we have it in our fan mode. Our last mode is our dry mode. Our dry mode is like a dehumidifier. We can choose our set point and it will cool our unit down to that set point, and it will continue to cool past that, but alternate every 6 to 10 minutes off and on. That way it doesn't drop that temperature too low and freeze you out of the unit, but it still dries the air in your unit. Another thing to note with our furnace is that the air is going to come out of the vents on the floor. It's not going to come out of the rooftop air. Your only rooftop air is going to be your fan and your cool and your dry. Your heat will come out of those floor vents from the furnace. Up here we have our sealing assembly for our AC system. We're going to notice our return vent right here has a filter on it. We need to clean that out every now and again to make sure we're not restricting airflow into that AC so it can run efficiently. We have another valve right here. This valve right here, we open it up, we feel all that air coming out. That is a quick dump valve. That is to go ahead and cool off just this area very quickly. And when we want that air to circulate through our air ducts up in the ceiling, we need to have that closed. Otherwise, the air is only going to push out of here. Our cold air is only going to come out of the ceiling. The furnace, when it operates, is going to come out of those vents that are lower lying in our cabinets and walls. Below that, we have our max air system. This is pretty simple to operate. Vent open, vent closed, fan off, fan on with 4 speeds. That's going to control our fan there in the kitchen. Down in our cabinet in the kitchen, we're going to notice all our 110 breakers. Behind here, we have our 12-volt fuses. All of them are labeled as to what they operate, so get familiar with that if you have any components that aren't working on where to go. Now down at the bottom, we're going to notice this GFCI. We'll see the white test button that will trip that outlet to test it. We turn it down and reset it. Now the GFCI is going to control pretty much all of your outlets in your unit. They all have a tag on them that say GFCI protected. The only time this is going to trip is if you're overamped. You got too many appliances plugged in, coffee makers, griddles, so on and so forth, and it's overamping that system. It'll trip. It'll also trip if any of those outlets get wet. So that's where you need to go ahead and just flip that breaker off and kick it back on in the event they're not working. On the side of our island, we have our propane detector right there. That is going to alarm us if we have any cautious gases in our unit. Little green light lets us know that that system is powered up. It is hardwired into our battery system. It does have an expiration date on it to let you know when it expires, either on the front or the back of it. We need to change that out when that time comes around. We also need to hit that test button every now and again before we take trips to make sure that alarm system is working properly. We're also going to have a CO as well as smoke detector up in our ceilings, powered by that 9-volt battery. We need to make sure that we're changing that battery out and that system is operating as well. In our kitchen, we have our Furrion 12-volt residential refrigerator. We'll go over the information of that now. All right, so here we have our Furrion residential fridge. We have a freezer on this side, fridge on this side, and we have our control center right here. We can see that we have our couple of options. We have fridge, freezer, function, and lock. In order to change into these functions, we need to make sure that lock icon is gone. So we can do that by holding down on the word itself, not the icon. Eventually that will go away. Now we can change the temperature on our fridge and freezer if we wish by pressing, once again, the words, not the numbers. Now we have a couple of functions on here. The first function is a little umbrella with a sun on it. That is our vacation mode option. That is going to be considered to be off-grid. So it's going to reduce the amount of work that compressor is doing. That way we're not using as much power. Let's say that we're working off of our batteries and we don't want to use as much power, so we want to put that in that vacation mode. This screen will auto lock itself, so if you open it back up and you're messing with it, you may see that lock icon come back on. We just hold that button once again. Our next mode is a little snowflake. That is our super freeze mode. That's going to drop the temperature down more on our freezer and help cool, super freeze whatever we might have put in there, right? Our next one is a little drop with a snowflake on it, and that is going to be our fridge cold mode. So our super cold mode for our fridge side, same thing. We can activate those both individually or at the same time. We keep clicking them and then all of them will go away. Now once everything's gone, that would just be normal operation and we can go ahead and adjust that temperature whatever we want. The other ones are set already for those modes. Now we're also going to have an option on here. If we store our unit, we want to put it in, they call it a low power mode. It's basically turning everything off. If we hold down that lock button once again to unlock it, and we hold down the function for 5 seconds, the system is going to turn off. We'll notice some dashes right here. That shuts your compressor off. That shuts the lights off inside the fridge. That's basically how we turn this system off. So if we're storing our unit, we want to shut it down. We also want to defrost this freezer, get any water out of it, moisture, anything like that. Same thing for our fridge. There's no drain tubes on these, so that water is all it's going to do is leak out. Make sure we put towels on the floor, wipe all of it out because that can cause damage to any wood components around it. So make sure we're maintaining this properly. You're also going to have a little travel knob for your refrigerator to help ensure that your goods don't fall out. Take that, screw that into that hole up top, and you tighten that down while you're in travel to keep those doors from opening. We also have our 110 microwave as well as our hood vent. Remember the vent we talked about on the other side needs to be open in order for this air to actually circulate out, or closed when we store it, keep insects from building a nest. That's the vent we're talking about. We also have our 3-burner Furrion stove and oven down here. Now this glass cooktop right here is down for more counter space. That's also how we need to have it when we travel, so that glass doesn't fall and break. When we use it, we need to go ahead and flip it up. We'll choose our designated burner, turn it to the flame icon, and crank away. Of course, we need to make sure that our propane is on in order for this to operate. Once it lights, we cook, we could shut it off, it's good to go. We're also going to notice on all these knobs we have a little red light that turns on. Nice little safety feature to let us know that gas is being expelled out of that unit, especially if you have kids run around and like touch stuff. We do have a little switch right here, blue lights. That knob is still going to turn red on that system regardless if those lights are off or on. You flip it down and the oven will light up too. Now the thing about our propane system is you can get air in the lines. This generally happens after we pull our unit out from storage. We had our system off. You're going to end up with air in your lines. It can also happen if we change our tanks out. When we change our tanks out, you're going to end up with air in the system. Well, how do we fix that problem? Well, as soon as you pull your unit out of storage or after you change out your tanks, you come over to your stovetop and you just light it. It may take a little bit of time to light, but eventually it'll light. You let it run for 30 to 60 seconds and let it run until that nice crisp blue flame is going on, and you'll have pretty much all the air out of your system. You want to do that before you operate things like your furnace or your tankless water heater to ensure that there's no air in that system and reduce opportunity for those things to go into fault because of it. Our next thing is our oven down here. Talked about air in the system. The first time you light this, it's going to take a little bit of time because the air still takes a little time to expel out of there. In order to operate, the only difference is we got to turn it to that flame icon, but we have to keep pushing that knob down in order for it to push the gas out and light. So once we do that, crank our handle till that pilot lights. We hold it down for about 30 to 60 seconds, let the thermocouple warm up, then turn it to our proper temperature, and then that burner tube will light up. Now, once again, we only have to expel the air out of our system that one time once we've turned our system off, unless we had to change our tank again or if we stored it and shut that system off. Here for our entertainment, we have our main TV system. Behind it, we're going to notice a coax plate with 2 coax ports. One's for satellite, one's for cable, and the one with cable is also going to be for our antenna as well. The port right there is also going to have a little button on it with a light. That button is our antenna booster. If we are searching for antenna channels, we need to make sure that light is on. We can make sure it's on by hitting that button, of course. And if we are searching for cable channels, because we have a hookup at the campground we're at, we want to make sure that light is off so it doesn't scramble the channels that are trying to come in. Up top, we're also going to have our Jensen radio system. You have speakers inside and outside as well. And down below, we have our 110 fireplace. If you don't want to use the gas, I'm going to tell you how that works right now. Here we have our fireplace. We have a sensor right up here in the top right. We have to aim that remote at to turn it on. We have our Celsius and Fahrenheit temperature we can change to. And right here, this little flame icon is going to change the dimness of our flame. If we want to change the lighting of our flame, we hit the light bulb on the screen down here at the bottom, and it'll give you some different options right there. If we want to operate our heater on a timer, once again, electric heater, it is going to be this button right here. It looks like a clock, and when we push it, we can see some times pop up: 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, all the way up to 8, and then it will go to 0 hours, letting you know that that timer is off. If we want to change our temperature, we'll use one of these 2 buttons at the bottom, and we can see once again we have a temperature down there, and we will go ahead and raise it until it kicks on, or lower it, we want it to kick off, or we can keep going until it says on, and that heater will stay running all the time. We kick it up one more time, and it's going to say OF, meaning that that system is off. At the rear of our unit, of course, we have our couch that can fold out into a bed. We have our recliners with heated seats, massaging seats, and that little light down at the bottom. We also have our reclining feature by pulling that cable, and they'll kick back and recline. In our bathroom, pretty cut and dry, we do have glass doors with travel latches on them. Good idea to put those on so you don't shatter the doors. Our shower has hot cold fixture. We also have a shower head that turns off and on. Why do you ask? Well, whenever you are dry camping, so you don't have a place to dump your gray tanks, or you are using your fresh tank water, you want to conserve the amount of water you're using out of that system as well as the amount of water you're putting in your gray tank. So in between lathering up and rinsing off, we can go ahead and just easily shut that water off at the shower head rather than having to fiddle with our hot cold fixture right there to find that sweet spot again. If you have city water connection, you have a place to drain your tanks, go ahead and use it like you would at your house. Just leave those gray tanks open. We also have a vent up here with a fan on it. That vent is to be able to extract steam and everything out of here when you're taking a shower, reduce opportunity for mold and mildew in here. It's suggested that you use that. For our toilet right here, we're only putting a few things in there. We're putting number 1 and number 2, right? Liquids and solids. For liquids, do your business, hit the pedal, flush it down the drain. Solids, we need to make sure we're filling that bowl up 1/2 to 3/4 of the way. We can do that by just barely depressing that pedal, and it will begin to fill that bowl up with water. This helps to flush those solids down the drain into that black tank and not get clogged up in the pipe. Other things that we're putting in there is RV toilet paper and our chemicals. Make sure RV toilet paper, because it will degrade properly and the chemicals will help it do so. Don't put anything else in there. I promise you, you're going to regret it. It'll get caught in valves, be expensive repair. So just 1, 2 chemicals and RV toilet paper. Over here we have our Furrion tankless water heater control. We'll go over the operation of that now. In our bathroom, we'll see our Furrion tankless control center. Pretty simple. We have our power on, off and on, kick it on. That's going to be our set point for our water. We can change that by hitting our up and down buttons right there. Our indicators right here, power, Fahrenheit, Celsius. If we want to change one to the other, we hit that bottom right button. And flame. Flame is only going to kick on whenever we turn that hot water on, indicating that system is working. And once again, on demand, it'll only come on whenever we have that hot water on. Here we are in our bedroom. Of course, we have storage under our bed. We have that second AC system. That ceiling assembly is going to work just like our rear one. And this thermostat right here on this wall is only going to control just the cool air. That front or rear AC, I should say, that thermostat controls the furnace for the entire unit. Over here we have our backer for our TV with our cable and satellite ports. And in our closet, we're going to have the hookup for that washer dryer with our hot cold water, as well as our line for our vent for that dryer. Now that is what utilizes that front gray tank for your system. That pretty much wraps up everything on our reflection.
Well, we hope you found that resourceful, but wait, there's more information on our Great American RV YouTube channel. This channel right here, find the playlist Hap's Helpful Hacks. We go over different products in this unit, and we'll take a deeper dive with more diagnostics, more information, as well as helpful tips when you're out camping. Tell your buddies, tell your friends, like, share, subscribe, do all those awesome things on YouTube, TikTok, wherever you found us. And keep watching here at Great American RV Superstores, where we bring the how-to you.